You did, but you clicked on the second one.
Mind blowing to me.
But you-
All right, well, welcome everybody to the November 3rd Earhart City Council meeting. And let me ask if there's a declaration of any conflict of interest by the council.
I mean,
Nope.
Technically, I suppose I should list the same potential conflict of interest as we're voting once again tonight on. Contractor.
all we're doing is reading it, right? So we're not even gonna vote.
Yeah, we're voting.
Have to vote on twice.
Well, I thought it had to be read twice. Excuse me, I recluse myself when that comes up.
All right, and no
And
conflict.
I do not have a conflict.
And Rita, you're okay?
I have no conflict.
Okay, and I have no conflict. And let me just say, if any of the people who are listening in would like to speak during the visitors section, to go ahead and either email Chad Sweet at cityofgearhart.com or use the raise hand function on Zoom. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the regular council meeting on October 6th?
I will approve the minutes of October 6th.
A second. Oh, yeah, I second.
There's been a motion by Dan Jesse and a second by Carrie Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None. Motion carries. And moving on to the special meeting minutes from October 12th, 2021. Someone like to make a motion to approve?
With correction,
Go ahead. I have a correction.
Go ahead, Carrie.
okay, I move, well, Sheila Noel, the page 1, last paragraph, it's supposed to be Nolan.
Anything else?
No, that's all I've got for it.
And Rita?
That was my correction as well.
Okay.
I move we approve.
Second, I'm not hearing anybody else.
Okay, there is a motion by Counselor Smith and a second by Dan Jesse. All those in favor say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Moving on to planning commission. Planning commission report is in your packet. I do want to make note that the parks Gerhart Park and Recreation Plan was continued. The public hearing at the Planning Commission level was continued to January 13th. And that was to provide some time to complete some other sections of the document. Any other comments?
I have a
I had a
comment.
question. Oh, go ahead, Rita.
Thank you. On the minutes by Virginia Didion, it states that Cherry Graff reported that Vacasa is now selling timeshares to property that Vacasa owns. I had asked Chad earlier if Vacasa owned any properties within the city of Gerhart, and he indicated that he believed that they did not. My other question is, if they do sell timeshares, do they fall under the same regulations as our short-term rentals?
So that's really an open question of law. This way of selling, I'll say rentals is new. Is from my research, there are only about 36 of them so far in the United States. There is a city in the Sonoma Valley who has taken the steps to regulate this type of ownership, to ban it essentially, they view it as a runaround of their short-term rental rules. And so how it works as compared to a traditional timeshare is, normally with a timeshare, there might be 4 owners, then they each get 25% of the time, and they know each other, they're their family members or their friends or what have you. This puts together 52 unrelated parties who essentially get 1 week each. And it's being viewed as a end around of the short-term rental limitations that are going into effect in communities. This community in California passed it. They were immediately sued in federal court by one of the national groups that's attempting to do this. So there will be some precedent on that case. That case will make some precedent. As far as whether we want to affirmatively get in front and regulate this, as you know, my view of my role as a city attorney is that I do whatever 3 of you want, as long as you're not asking me to do anything illegal. And then my objective is then to win the case. So if this rises to the level of council priority, planning commission priority, this is going to be one where our record is going to be very, very important, because the difference between property rights associated with home ownership and vacation rentals are different. And so if this were to be a priority, we would likely need to make the same health and safety decisions that were made, that we made our short-term rental based on. And we would also need all the employers in the area and the other people that understand the need for workforce housing. We would need to gather all that data to demonstrate the need and the lack thereof. Because if it's simply about home ownership, that becomes a far tougher case to justify. So if you guys task me with this, what I can tell you on the front end is there is very little precedent. There is a high likelihood we will get sued, because we would be making, I think we'd be the first community in Oregon to take this on. And it would require a lot of findings and a very careful setup. So I'm monitoring that California case as this did come up at the Planning Commission, and learning all I can about this housing type and its impact on the communities where it is occurring. And that's all I can tell you at this time, because that's all that there is.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. May I add a couple of things, Madam Mayor?
Yes, please go ahead.
So I think there's a few things in our ordinance that will also help us out. The fact that we're no longer giving any new short-term vacation rental licenses out So if somebody was to buy a new home, own it as fractional ownership or as a timeshare, they would still be in violation of our ordinance if they advertised to people outside of that fractional ownership. And so that's one avenue that we would also look at.
So, but just hypothetically, if I was Vacasa, I could purchase a house in any R1 zone. And then I own the house, my name's Vacasa. I can sell a week to 52 people. And they can take the week and come their week of the year. But they can't rent it. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's how it would work practically. And if we were to say that that type of ownership is substantially similar to a vacation rental, and you know, if put on the spot, because there's fractional interest and people have always owned homes in that manner. It's just that they've been either related to each other or friends or something of that nature. And it's never been like 52. So we probably would want to regulate the number of unrelated parties that own a home, and the numbers would be whatever you said it would. So if it's 8, it's 8. If it's 10, it's 10. But I think what we'd be seeking to avoid is something that actually is an end around to our vacation rental ordinance, because having 52 unrelated parties utilizing the house looks a lot more like a vacation rental than it does 3 siblings and their cousin sharing a house.
Right. Could we at least find out how many houses are
Potentially.
in this potential group?
Well, sure. Yeah, I can ask Christy that question in regards of whether or not Vacasa actually owns any of those homes. Again, I don't think that there are any that they own. It would be something that they would have to purchase in the future. But we'll find out for you.
Right, and it could be another rental agency that's big that would be willing to jump into that game if they saw it was lucrative. So maybe
Sure.
we could get a list of that too.
But it could be.
And we can track down some of that information. And this really is an emerging market. This is not something that has occurred before. And it's primarily happening in the Napa Valley and wine country in California, because a lot of those cities have done the short-term rental exclusions.
Any other comments at this time?
No, Rita beat me to the punch.
Thank you for asking the question.
Had the same question. I just think that instead of jumping out and being the landmark initial case, might be wise for us to sit back and see what kind of demand that there is, that Vacasa or Airbnb, or I just read that Zillow's getting out of the home buying business completely, but they've spun off a subsidiary to do that portion of their business. So might just sit back and wait and see what the market does, and then react accordingly.
Yeah, I'm never eager to make law. And that doesn't mean that we don't have to do it. I mean, as you said, if this is a priority of council, like, we can certainly take this on. But, the odds of us ending up in federal court would be extremely high. The odds of us ending up at LUBA would be extremely high. And, those are hard miles on the odometer of life.
It still seems worth monitoring to me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any other comments then? gentlemen, we're gonna move on to the mayor's report and very briefly, first of all, I just wanna announce that another one of our long-term employees here at City Hall, Cheryl Lund, is going to be retiring very shortly in the next few weeks. And I just want to, publicly give my thanks. I know she has been working with the planning commission for about 30 to 40 years. And also works in our court. So she wears multiple hats, which frequently people have to do in a small organization, and I know that well. And so I know she'll be missed, and I just want to send her off to retirement with our thanks. Second, I want to report that we did get a $2,000 grant from Pacific Power for kids' playground equipment, and my thanks to Alyssa Dunlap for encouraging us to apply for that. And third, we will be looking for 1 or 2 planning commission members in the near future. If you're interested, we will put out a blog post very soon with an application. Next, I wanted to thank the CERT members who participated and the fire department who participated in the October shakeout. We did what I thought was pretty good radio communications with the net, it's called, and this is ham radio. And we could hear on all of our high points that people had evacuated to, we could hear each other very well. And then that was followed with an informal open house at the downtown fire station. And that's all I have for this month. Council reports, Dan Jesse.
I have none.
Terry.
I have nothing.
Brent.
I checked in with Jenny Frank. The people who were going to be trying to organize the Gerhardt Business Association couldn't get to it this month, so they're going to try again next month. And following on the mayor's comment about the shakeout, talked to quite a number of people who visited the fire station and saw the conditions that our volunteers are working, and very excited to help with the new initiative for a new fire station. Getting a lot of good feedback on the fire police station discussion website. Several people have stepped forward to volunteer to help with having coffees to help get the word out about the proposed site. Several people have commented that not everyone is computer literate. So websites and blogs don't work. So they're suggesting more newsletter, pamphlet, door-to-door type communications rather than electronic. I attended a meeting with Gideon, a consultant that the mayor reached out to talk about the fire station. And I'd just like to thank her for bringing him forward. I couldn't imagine a more qualified person to help us out, get the message out. If we had to custom build a consultant, it would probably end up looking very much like Gideon. He's got a fire station background, communications background, and it's going to be very exciting working with him. And that's about it.
He's also a Gerhardt resident.
He is. Even better.
And Rita,
Well, I had a really frank discussion with a member of the Seaside Post Office regarding the zip code change. And it's true, he's my son-in-law, but we had a really frank discussion about the pros and cons of getting a new zip code. And it was really informative and I learned a lot. And the only other thing, I want to give a shout out to our fire station in Chad for their really good work on the fire last month. And I really appreciate all of their good work. And that's all I have.
thank you. I'd like to hear more sometime about your pros and cons.
I've got it. Let me know.
All right.
Well,
thank you.
yeah.
Would that be appropriate during the discussion of the resolution 965?
Maybe.
Yes, it would be.
All right, we're going to move on to city officer reports. We have the chief of police. He submitted his statistics, and there is a letter from him in correspondence. Any comments on his letter or his statistics? And is he listening in? I'm not
I don't
seeing
see
him.
No, Chief Owen wasn't able to make it tonight, but I'm prepared to help if you have any questions.
Okay.
Do we need to do anything about his request to pay more to hire somebody, or is that just is that handled through you, Chad?
Well, it could be handled through me, as the budget is enough to cover what it is that he's proposing. But what the chief wanted to do is make sure that he communicated the issue to you, and he would like a consensus from the council that he's heading in the right direction. If you have any concerns, I'll forward those to him, and then we'll go back to the drawing board.
It's a fairly thankless job, and clearly not many people want it. So if we need to spend more to get qualified people, I think it's important.
I totally agree.
It's great.
Yep.
I agree too. If you're looking for consensus now,
Yeah,
okay, we're just gonna skip over
Yep.
that letter.
yes.
Yeah, I would even suggest that since Warrenton and Cannon Beach, if we split the difference between the two and said 51,000 as a minimum salary, that would be fine with me.
I have no
Sure.
problem with that.
That's fine, that's fine.
Sure, as long as the council does not have any concerns and would like me to do something different, we'll go ahead with that suggestion.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And fire chief report. I saw you on there somewhere.
Second from my.
There you are.
I'm here. Thank you very much. October data report. In October, we had a total of 54 calls. We ended last month on call number 569. And last year, at the end of October, we ended on call 426. So we're still moving ahead. We're 143 calls ahead of last year. That call breakdown for last month was 23 total in the city and 25 in the district. Out of both of those, we received a mutual aid once. And then in additional to those first two numbers is we sent aid out 6 times. And that includes 5 to Seaside and 1 to Cannon Beach. About the cottage fire that Councilor Fackrell mentioned just a minute ago. We did have that last month. It did go to a second alarm, which in turn brings in more resources through our predetermined county mutual aid box alarms that's set up. There was a couple of communication hurdles, but I'll address those in a minute. Our district was covered by Hamlet. When we go second alarm, that moves more resources in, so we were still covered on our district for that. And then if anybody wants any more information, the press release for that's on our Facebook page. For communication and dispatch centers, if you've not heard, due to staffing, they have temporarily closed Astoria Dispatch. So we used to have Seaside Dispatch that dispatched kind of South County for police and fire, and Astoria Dispatch dispatched North County along with Clatsop County Sheriff's Office. due to staffing, they had to close Astoria Dispatch, and they're all operating out of Seaside right now. That's on a temporary basis. As a fire defense board, we asked them for it to be no shorter than the end of next summer. We didn't want to get in the middle of something and then have it try to switch right before in the middle of next summer when we're really busy. So we think ultimately that's going to be a good thing. We've been trying to merge dispatch centers for about 20 years. It'll help a lot in communication issues and fix lots of problems. The couple of hurdles we had on the cottage fires, we got the wrong type of apparatus and requested, as well as it causes a big delay when we get apparatuses, because one dispatch center calls the other one, then that dispatch center has to tone them out. So there's a big delay in that. So we're working on improving it. With that, you kind of find out some other holes and struggles you have. So there may be a need in the future for some funds to be allocated to communication stuff. We are looking at different avenues for that. We have asked the county for some funds that they had some, I think like a $6 million grant for relief funds sent to them. And then we're looking at funds elsewhere to help with that, to try to help with their communication problems. In merging and trying to figure stuff out. The holes that we have found is that even some of our volunteers pagers don't go off because of radio communication errors. So that ultimately results in sometimes volunteers not even knowing there's a call. And you know, the biggest price on seeing if there's communication problems, it could leave in injury and worse to people or firefighters on scene. So I'll update you more at least every month as that comes out. We're having communication meeting. I think we're going to move to weekly. So I'll have more information as that comes down the line to what's going on, what's planned, and things for the future for that. In October, we had quite a bit of community involvement at the fire department did, I should say. We participated in 3 separate community events. We participated in Seaside event that had a big turnout on Broadway. I think they did like a pumpkin drop and stuff, and we were down on Broadway for that. We were at a trunk or treat at the Lighthouse Church here in our district, and then we kind of had an open house and stuff here at our main station for people coming this way. Last month was Fire Prevention Month. We were really engaged with our community, primarily on Facebook with that. Weekly and sometimes daily posts reminding people it's time to check your smoke detectors and make sure you have a fire plan and what have you. We did a good job communicating with that. And then we had an opportunity to participate again, like we normally do in the School Fire Prevention Week. We helped put a bunch of goodie bags together and pre-fire plan kit stuff for the kids at the school and moving forward with that. As Madam Mayor and a couple other people did mention, we did participate in the shakeout. And then we had an open house at our station, which I feel like was very, very well for our first ever one. We had a great communication, a great conversation with people that showed up for that. For this month, our plan moving forward, we'll have an open house on Sunday the 21st. Tonight, they're kind of deciding next door right now what time that'll be. We'll do another, just like last month, we'll have barbecue hamburgers and hot dogs for anybody who wants to come hang out and check us out and even just hang out and talk with us and meet some of our firefighters at the very least and get to know us a little bit. Again, that'll be Sunday, October 21st. And then as one last thing we're looking at this month, I'm always kind of looking at what I can do for fire department morale and the crew. We did it a couple of years ago. We decided this year we have some new people and some people that don't have much family in town, and even some that just they're kind of it over here. So we're going to do with our fire family what we call kind of a Friendsgiving, and on Thanksgiving we'll have the fire family over next door, and my family will be there participating in that for the crew to help them out and make sure they have a place to go. And unless there's any questions, that will be the report for this month.
I assume that's November 21st.
November 21st for the open house.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Josh. Justine, City Treasurer.
Audit starting. So next week, the June 30th audit will start. Actually, it's November 16th, the week after. The auditors will come on site. They'll be here hopefully only 1 or 2 days. Most of the data I've already submitted electronically. They've given me a list, and so I think I've gotten most of their stuff up into them. if any of the counselors had received a survey through them, they asked just to make sure that you get it back to them, and that should be from Acuity. I do have a brief water update that relates to financial that has been discovered. So water rates are located in an ordinance. It's Ordinance 874, which was signed in December of 2013. Just the rates was an amendment. So it laid out how much the city was to charge. And in the process of training, it's been discovered that there's been a rate calculation error in the water system software for outside city customers. This rate calculation adjustment only impacts outside city limit rates on meters of 3/4 inch in size, which happens to be primarily the residential one. So for reference, the base minimum charge for a 2-month period for outside the city limits for a 3/4 inch meter has been $58 for a standard rate. Based on the ordinance calculation, it should have been $58.50. So it's not a tremendous amount, but it does matter. We should have it right. We should have what's in our ordinance. So that has been updated effective as of this week. And so we plan to send notifications in the water bills. And we were thinking we would probably send a copy of the ordinance along with it so that people can see it. It's pennies on consumption, but overall, when all of our rates are that way, it will make a difference. So we have fixed that, and it is now in alignment with our ordinance. Also, this is not new, but just in the financial report, it's really the most significant thing is that due to the state water constraints on the city of Gerhart during certain high water consumption periods, we do purchase water from the city of Warrenton. It's nothing new, but it happens to be our high months. So it's pretty substantial in expenditure 64. So if you look at that under water purchase, you will see a substantial over $200,000, I think, increase from last month. So that includes our largest consumption month, but really that's the most significant thing in the report. And tax collections have started for the new year. So we're getting current taxes.
I assume we're still billing appropriately for that overwater usage, meaning, yes, we're over budget on expenditure, but I assume that means we're also over budget on revenues brought in from water bills.
That is correct. Generally, they balance themselves exactly that way. And throughout the years, that has been the case a few times. We try to estimate the best that we can. It's with the weather and all that, it's just an educated guess.
Well, it was a dry summer.
It's been dry, yeah.
And the largest consumption month is August or September?
July, August.
July, August.
Mhm.
September's right up there though.
But it was this year. I mean, we did have very high. And I don't have a lot of historical data just for my personal self, but Chad assures me that it's going to be lower once we hit winter. It was pretty startling to get that bill.
Yeah, the nature sprinkler is taking over at this point moving forward. And then we're still also going to, we're still have on our agenda to look at water rates, to do a study to make sure that we're doing a service to that particular line item. So there'll be more to report on that soon.
I noticed my
So
grass.
Justine?
Yes.
Go ahead, Brent.
Thank you. In the report on page 20, there were 2 disbursements on 10/7. Purchases of water from Warrenton. Those were actually 2 transactions done on the same day, or
No, they were two invoices because for some reason we didn't receive the month before invoice. So it's actually
okay.
two, I didn't want to lump them together so that when I look back for historical reference, I can put it in the right month, just so I can kind of gauge for cash flow. And so I wanted them to show separately, so you can see where the 1 month was really high and then the next month starts to drop. So it's actually 2 months, Brent.
Okay, that makes total sense. Thank you. And so is the software glitch a rounding issue?
Actually, it's not a rounding issue. It was that the ordinance says that it's supposed to be outside city limits is supposed to be 1.5 times the inside rate. So it's just a mathematical calculation. And for some reason, that 1.5 came out to be 5850, but was put in the system as 50. So I don't know if it was a operator error or a mathematical transaction error when somebody was doing it and they thought that that was the right amount. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. That's it.
All right, thank you, Justine. And Peter Watts, city attorney report.
Sure. So we're in court on Monday in the US Bank v. Shannon Smith case. That's oral argument scheduled, and the motion is on a summary judgment motion, which is where we say there are no material facts in dispute and they can't win. And they say there are no material facts in dispute and they can't win. And the judge either decides that one of us wins or that there are material facts in dispute and they can't grant summary judgment, in which case we go to more of what you would term a trial, like what you would see on television. So my hope is that the judge will grant summary judgment for us. And I think that's probably the likely outcome. It's just there, but the facts in the case are just so unique that it's kind of hard to know. I thought Shannon Smith's lawyer did an excellent job with his pleadings. Dean Alterman, who you may remember from suing us over our short-term rental ordinance, so get to see him again. The other thing is there was a memo that obviously I responded to that I think all of you have seen. I want to reiterate, I do not believe that that was written in bad faith at all. This is just a really complex intersection of kind of federal law, Oregon constitutional law, and Oregon statutory law around preemptions. And that's an area of the law where even lawyers struggle with it if they don't represent a lot of governments. And even I've seen county councils that have struggled with this issue. So I absolutely can understand how someone could read those various laws and come to the conclusions that they did. But in addition to advising you on legal risk and that, I kind of realized that when disinformation is brought to my attention, I kind of need to respond to that as well, because if I don't, I get a bunch of phone calls from people who believed that we had banned all construction activities on weekends and holidays. And that, as all of you know, that simply is not what had happened, but that's what people believed happened. And so they were very upset. And I can understand people being upset about the issue. I just want to make sure they're upset about the right issue. So I'm probably going to do more of that in the future, because in the end, I think it'll save me time unless you guys tell me not to. And then the other thing that I'd say is I've been working on a bunch of radio issues in Columbia County. And I think the general consensus is that there's going to be overlap between Columbia and Clatsop, because at the very least, because of Fishhawk Lake. So to the extent that they move forward with engineering, I'll keep our chief and Chad apprised of that, so that there could be some financial savings, I think, if Clatsop County piggybacked upon that work and rely on Chad and our interim chief in order to keep the other fire service in Clatsop County informed. I had not realized there were significant radio coverage issues until this year, but there are, and it absolutely impacts the safety of what I've learned in Columbia County is absolutely affects the safety of our first responders, as well as their ability for police to get backup as needed, and for the fire to volunteers to both respond and also radio for help if they need to make that from a 1 alarm to a 2. So I had not realized it was an issue, but now I'm aware of that. And unless you have any other questions, that's what I've got.
I have a question, Peter. Peter, if we have a swap of the urban growth boundary and we have to make it the same zone, R1 zone, how do we make it a park?
Because a park is allowed as a conditional use in a R1 zone, and you're the ones that get to decide whether conditional use is used or not. And so I guess I would assume that if you wanted to make it a priority, that be a park, that you would probably allow the conditional use in the zone.
So it'd be the same as putting a fire station in an R1 zone, a conditional.
Correct.
use.
Yeah, it's a conditional use, and you are the body that is granted with the ability to conditionally allow it, and you would be entitled to vast deference in your decision by any court if that decision were appealed to LUBA.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you. Thank you, Peter and Chad.
Thank you.
Administrator report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I've just got a few things here. There are some items in my report that I'd like to highlight. Building department, an update on contract negotiations we're still working through, but we're getting closer to that. And I'll have more to report next month for sure. Vacation rentals, we've reported of the 82 taxable properties. We still have a few left to play Q3 taxes, and we're working on that. But the short-term vacation rentals had about 245,000 in transient tax so far for that Q3, as it was the busiest part of the season that they're making payments for now. Emergency cash program is something that Christy helped organize again for this month. And we did have 4 new members last week. Plus we have 3 more that are working on their community cash barrels. Again, this is a program where people can store emergency supplies up to the east of us. And those would be retrieved at a later date if something did happen. We currently have about 14 barrels being stored by various people up there. It seems to be increasing pretty well as the word is getting out, and we have 3 more that are that we know that are on the way. Let's see here. Fire station update, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I too am very happy to have a team forming around this fire station. We have counselors that have been very helpful. We have the public that are coming out and wanting to assist. And then again, Mayor Cochran bringing us a person to help us with the communication. So at this point in time, we are building our information. Starting to put together better graphics and newsletters and that sort of thing. And then in about a month, a little over a month and a half, we'll begin getting that information out to the public in mass. The question that you had earlier about, or the comment about people not being able to access social media or some of the other media that we have out there, websites, and that is a valid one for sure. And we've had that discussion. So there will be a lot more communication through things such as the water bills, and then also better utilizing media, local media, that being radio, newspaper, and any other way we can get good information out for people to debate and discuss. There will also be scheduled public meetings to present some of this information in the near future as well. So the period of time for that will be right around the new year, January, February, and then March, April, and May. We'll just continue the discussions and as often as we can. So thank you for that comment, and that's our plan. Tonight, part of that, we're going to have another visitor that will help clarify some of these things as well. Again, Mayor talked about the $2,000 grant that we got from the Pacific Power Foundation, which was really nice. And thank you again for them coming to us and asking us to apply for that as they saw the stories about the park and some of the things with that. Another grant that we received, we found out about, and staff and I wrote rather quickly, but was able to make the deadline, was the Oregon Department of Transportation Small Cities Allotment Grant. We applied, this was for sidewalk repair and some enhancement for the sidewalks that we have. So what I did is we wrote the grant for the existing sidewalks that we have to improve them and repair them before we start doing more sidewalks, to which we could use our budget for. And we received a $100,000 grant that we're going to be able to use for that project. And we'll report on more information and how we're going to go through that process. But I was very proud of the staff for getting into that grant. We've been quite successful this year in grants. Work sessions, again, we have Tuesday, November 30th on schedule. Tentative agenda. Here's some items that we may have on that, but the work session has been scheduled for November 30th at 6:30 p.m. And that's all that I have to report at this time.
Maybe mention.
Oh, as a matter of fact, we got a gentleman here tonight to speak about that. Thank you. We're, yeah, so that's all that I have to report.
I would just say for work session, my number one goal for that evening would be for council to look at the totals and really start looking forward next year and what we want to try and accomplish. Which may include the other two things on the agenda. I'd like to see how this set up.
Thank you for reminding me of that. That was the intention. We will be talking about goals and that as a matter of reporting and discussion.
Any other questions for Chad? Okay, hearing none, we have correspondence in the packet. Are there any comments on any of the correspondence? Peter discussed one, and then we also discussed the chief's letter in there. That was. Then there was some late correspondence with regard to the zip code.
Correct. That was correspondence from Chris Bode, and that should be on your desk. And I believe it was also emailed. There it is. And then the only other change we made on your suggestion, Polina, moving forward, is that we will make sure that the police chief's correspondence will be under chief's reports.
Thank you. Okay, we have visitor section. We have Ken Schonkweiler on the call. He's the ODOT Senior Region Planner, and he's going to give us an update on the ODOT Highway 101 project. Ken, I saw you there earlier.
Top right.
Okay, you have the floor.
All right. Council, thank you for your time. Again, my name is Ken Schunkweiler. I work at ODOT. I'm based out of Astoria, and I'm here to update you on our facility plan process that we've been working through with members of the community, and really discuss a couple of the alternatives that we've come up with, and then promote our round of public outreach that we have going on and actually starting today through November 4th. So I'll share my screen. I'm hoping that everybody in the council chambers can see it. So it has been about a year since I think I had discussed all of this with council, possibly more. I think it was actually before COVID happened. But again, so we started this facility planning process to build off of what was identified in the 2017 Gearhart Transportation System Plan. And for those that are maybe not familiar with the terminology, a facility plan is just a more in-depth version of what is in your TSP. It comes with a solution that we get public feedback on at the end, and then some cost estimates so that members at ODOT like myself or at city staff can go and pursue grant funding and start improving US 101. Just with regards to our schedule, so we are basically a little bit more than halfway done with the facility plan. We had a round of public outreach earlier this year and got a lot of good feedback on what the issues were in the corridor. And right now we're coming up with a couple of different alternatives that we can, give to council, give to the public. All were created with feedback from both city staff and our participant advisory committee from Gearhart. And then after that's over, we'll come up with a draft or a final solution, come back out to the public to get some more feedback on it, just to make sure that we have the right solutions that really cater to the needs of people in Gearhart. And then I go back to the director or the Oregon Transportation Commission and then get this adopted. So as we had discussed, I think before, gosh, a year and a half ago, we heard a lot about a lot of the issues on US 101. So anything from speeding, accessing businesses safely. It was difficult for people, whether they're on foot, on bike, or in a vehicle, to make turning movements to get across the highway and get to their residences and to their businesses. We talk with Chief Bowman a lot on the various citations and the collisions that happen in the corridor. And we heard back from the community, and what people really desired were safe and comfortable places for people to move up and down the corridor, whether it be from walking, biking, or in a vehicle. A couple of other issues that we heard back from the community, really just improving the corridor aesthetics. As we all know, there's a lot of stormwater and flooding issues on US 101, particularly in this time of the year. And then last but not least, access to transit stops was a fairly difficult thing for people that use public transit on US 101 in Gearhart. All of our solutions, again, were built off of that 2017 Gearhart Transportation System Plan that was adopted by the city. Really focusing on this 3-lane cross section that provides traffic calming and then access to the residences and businesses in the corridor by creating a continuous center turn lane throughout the corridor. Another aspect about this solution is that it frees up a lot of right-of-way for us to build things within the property that we already owned, whether it be a bike lane or a multi-use path. Maybe some planter strips. And this first alternative that we have for the plan focuses on really a multi-use path closer down to the Pacific Way signal on the east side, and then sidewalk infill on the west side. Here's a quick diagram of just what that kind of cross section looks like from the highway perspective. And again, a bicycle lane on each side. Farther up north is where just above the bowling alley is where that west side sidewalk would stop, because a lot of the wetlands and issues through there, and then continue on some pedestrian facilities on the east side as well as some crossings throughout the corridor. We have a menu of crossings. Right now, really the only marked crossings we have are in the Pacific Way signal. By pursuing this 3-lane cross section, it frees up a lot of our requirements to actually add pedestrian crossings in the corridor. It makes it a lot safer for both vehicles and pedestrians that need to cross because there's fewer lanes of traffic that they have to essentially navigate. Our other alternative for the corridor is very similar. It's just a slightly pared down version where there's sidewalk on instead of a multi-use path on the other side. And then farther up north in the corridor, after the bowling alley, it kind of turns into a more shared use walking path. We've heard a lot about the separation, and specifically from the participant advisory committee about how some of these alternatives are great and how some of them maybe are not super desirable. Some of them being the Jersey barrier separation on the north. I just point this out for council. We'll likely remove this pending a lot of feedback, but that's kind of the direction that we were heading. It wasn't very aesthetically pleasing. And frankly, I don't think the committees really enjoyed it all that much. Another issue that came up as we did our outreach and all of the data that we've compiled from the plan are the oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. So the main difference again between these two solutions is the cost. So that multi-use path is significantly more expensive than the walking lane and sidewalk combo. Should we pursue an alternative that is more costly, it would likely be phased and be done in sections rather than all at once. And it might be the case too with alternative B. One of the other things that we heard about are drivers and to navigate the Gearhart Lane intersection on US 101. As far as what we are able to do from a traffic engineering perspective, it really comes down to two options, maintaining the existing stop control and then looking at a solution such as a roundabout. We'll be, again, presenting both of these options out to the public. Obviously, maintaining the existing stop control is cheaper. It doesn't meet our mobility targets for side street operations, so there still will be some driver frustration and just frankly, a lot of delay on the Gearhart Lane approach of US 101. And then the roundabout has a couple of positives. It helps calm traffic, but it improves operations for drivers approaching US 101 because they're able to make the move and go north or south. However, it has higher impacts such as cost, right-of-way acquisition, and then we'd have to maintain some freight mobility as well too throughout the corridor. Just real quick as I skim through this, these alternatives, a roundabout at Gearhart Lane, as opposed to leaving the existing stop control, basically a stop sign, provides a couple of other benefits as well. It allows us to add more pedestrian crossings at the corridor. And then last but not least, improve those turning movements out of Gearhart Lane, whether it be north or south. As well as, so in addition to this, we have a slew of pedestrian crossings that are planned or throughout the corridor. We wouldn't likely have all of these installed, but we want to know from the community which ones are the priorities and which ones should we actually pursue an engineering judgment to see which are feasible. All of this leads me to our online open house right now that starts today, November 3rd, and goes through November 24th. So all of these alternatives are listed on that online open house. It is web-based. When we were planning this months ago, that was essentially, during Delta and during COVID, and it was kind of essentially a guesstimate on how we would do public involvement. We like to do open houses in person. It just didn't seem feasible when we were planning this a couple months ago. But the good news is that we've actually been getting a much higher response rate on our online open houses and a lot of great feedback from them. We sent postcards out to essentially all the residents in the community. We're promoting this through the city's website. We've asked the city staff to promote some of our social media posts that we have that show this link, and people can click on it and go through the online open house. My contact information is there. I've already received a couple of emails and phone calls from people in the community that have a lot of feedback. And I'm always available to either talk or, compile some information from citizens that want to participate in the planning effort. The facility plan open house looks a little bit like this. It's fairly intuitive. You can just kind of scroll through and take a look at, read about the planning document, get an overview of what was proposed and how this plan came about. It has some instructions to use the site, and then citizens can simply scroll through and take a look at all of the cross sections, and at the bottom provide comments and feedback. I'd like to open it up to council and kind of get a little bit of feedback from any members that are interested, or maybe they saw something that they didn't like or that they did like. Any initial assumptions that somebody from council would have.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
Well, about 6 or 7 slides back, and I forget the title of the slide, but you were comparing 2 different costs. And one cost included a Jersey barrier, and I didn't understand what that was. What is a Jersey barrier?
That's a great question. And so far, again, I would point back to, I made some comments from our participant advisory committee that pretty much the Jersey barrier was not a very popular option. They're essentially the concrete separators that are 3 to 5 feet high that we use to separate construction zones. They're gray. They're not super attractive, but they're relatively cheap to create some separation between vehicles and maybe a walking use path on the other side. We're likely going to take that element out of that document because of all of the negative feedback we've heard from the participant advisory committee. But that's kind of where we're at with that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I know that they now that you explained what it was, I know that in Europe and the Netherlands, I believe that's the country, they use the Jersey barriers. And I have had folks that have gone there that says that when they are biking and those barriers are there, it makes them feel relatively safe. I do understand they're not attractive, but if it makes people and pedestrians feel safe, I understand that as well. But thank you for your explanation.
And I think, we left it in the online open house because we want to hear that kind of feedback as well too. If there really is a desire to have a more separated facility farther north on the corridor, we ultimately want to plan for it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council?
Ken, I've got a question. Your center turning lane, are there going to be any concrete barriers to keep people from using it as a passing lane?
Unfortunately not. So we wouldn't be able to put a median per se in a center turn lane because it essentially because of the driveway access spacing throughout Gearhart. A lot of the driveways are close together. And so any kind of effort to really separate that and remove it from people using it as a passing lane would kind of defeat the purpose of it. I think this is an important point that I'd want to make, that as we work with law enforcement, it's something that we want to make aware. It's illegal to use it as a passing lane. That's not a legal movement from a vehicle. It's strictly for turning. So it is something that we want to acknowledge and work with law enforcement to be aware of.
Right, okay.
Brent or Dan? Yeah, I just want to say thank you to you for all your work and to our team and our citizens who are working on that committee. There's 6 or 7 Gerhart citizens on the committee.
Correct, along with a lot of help from ODOT and other organizations. I did just receive another question, if I might just ask Ken real quick. Ken, I had someone ask about, you know, where those sidewalks and things may extend to and the various options. Is there a map available of the entire area that would show some of those ideas from above?
Yeah, that's correct. So on the online open house, you're able to scroll through and see some of the extents. You know, for the most part, a lot of the sidewalk infill is focused around the Pacific Way intersection and farther north. And that's where our right of way is a bit larger. Once you get farther south towards the seaside border, we're up against a couple of difficulties involving, you know, steep ditches. We don't actually own a lot of the property. A lot of the homes are fairly close to the actual roadway, so it makes it impossible to widen. You know, a lot of people wouldn't want to have a, you know, essentially a road right in front of their doorstep. That makes it rather uncomfortable. So a lot of what we're planning is, you know, kind of around that Pacific Way intersection and then farther north.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Ken, very much.
Thank you. And please take a look and leave us some comments. We want to get this out to as many people as we can.
Thank you, Ken.
And next we did have, it's not written in on your agenda, Scott Fricanese is a second visitor and he wanted to talk for a few minutes about the land swap.
Correct. And if you might, just to introduce Scott. Scott is an experienced planner with Fricanese and Associates. Scott has been in contact with the city to discuss a lot of the issue with the potential land swap for the new fire station site, if it's so chosen. And I wanted to take this opportunity for Scott to introduce himself and to tell you a little bit about the process and answer some basic questions if you had them, with more to report, of course, in the future. But Scott?
Excellent. Yeah, Mayor and Council, thank you so much for having me tonight. I know you have a busy agenda, so we'll try and keep this as brief as possible, but I did want to run through kind of what we've been working on and what we're working towards. Again, my name is Scott Fricanese. I'm the principal of Fricanese Associates. We are a small city planning firm based in Portland. I do a lot of work actually throughout the US and Utah, Texas, Louisiana. But really most of the work here is here in Oregon. Just completed Redmond's comprehensive plan update, working on adoption of Salem's comprehensive plan update, working in Ashland on some housing plans there. But recently I've had some focus on the North Coast. I've been working as doing some current planning for Rockaway, Garibaldi, and Bay City. And one of the things that I recently completed that is pertinent to this process is we did a 10-acre UGB expansion in Rockaway out of the tsunami inundation zone for critical facilities. So I think that's one reason why I feel like there's something that I have some experience taking on and hope to bring to the table. So essentially, as Chad mentioned, you know, he and city staff has brought me on to navigate this process of accomplishing the UGB swap. So that's our ultimate goal. We've already begun collecting GIS data, mapping, background information. I know that there's been a lot of discussion and work done this already. So we kind of want to gather that up, as well as, you know, any pertinent or relevant planning documents that will apply to this effort. I've also already engaged the state, so DLCD staff. In fact, I actually had a great call with them earlier today, which was kind of a interesting conversation, which I was glad that I was able to have before this. The neat thing is that they are supportive of this process as long as we follow, their required procedures, and that's going to be important. We need to have the support of the state, the county, as well as the city to actually move this thing forward. I guess the main thing is our first task is we have to develop a report and findings that address the criteria of DLCD. Really, that's the most important thing. And so that really entails a lot of different things, but really we have to do a couple things. One is a site alternative analysis. We can't just say this is the site that we want to do the swap for. We have to look at potential for other sites and then make arguments for why we feel like this site is the best for the swap. Also looking at demands on public facilities as part of that report, looking at traffic estimates as part of that. Also, all the statewide planning goals come into play when we're doing a UGB swap like this. So that's going to be also important as well. Some of the things we already know, and I know you all probably know this already, but a couple of the key things in terms of planning goals is considering goal 17, which is coastal shorelands, and goal 18, which is beaches and dunes, because part of the swap, as you likely know, is taking some of those areas that are pretty much unbuildable that are in the UGB and taking that area and swapping it for this other area that could be potentially developable. So the other thing is, I already mentioned this, but working with the county is going to be key, because we're going to have to have them, they're going to have to go along with this and adopt resolutions and also comp plan changes as the city will to make sure this is done. One thing that that's really important to know too is that the swap has to be one-to-one, in that the area has to be the same in terms of acreage, and the density needs to be the same in terms of zoning. So it's kind of a one-to-one thing. So that's a really important thing we need to keep in mind. One other interesting thing is, because it's less than 50 acres, it's a staff level decision at DLCD, rather than it would have to go through a much more arduous process. So that does simplify things a little bit. One other thing that came up, I think earlier, was the question about the parks being a conditional use. I think that was a great question. I think that's really important to understand that would be a conditional use as a park in the R1 zone. Also, a fire station is a conditional use in the R1 zone. Now, that's really important to know, because if we're doing a one-to-one swap, those uses have to be allowed in that R1 zone. So I think that's a good thing that we've already identified it knowing. And then, finally, in terms of schedule, I know we're trying to look at getting this done, early next year in the spring. And I think that's possible. I think it is ambitious, just because of the nature of doing this work and the public hearings that we have to hold, and the public noticing that has to happen in terms of Measure 56, and that public noticing is really important to make sure we follow all those rules and make sure that those are done properly and meeting the day requirements. So I'm thinking, the idea is that we complete this findings and report early next year, January, so we get a couple months to work on this report and come up with the findings as to why the swap makes sense and to why we chose this specific area. Then that'd be January, maybe early February. And then we look at starting to schedule those public hearings for the city council or the city planning commission, and then council. And also we have to do those hearings with Clatsop County, the Board of Commissioners, and their planning commission. So one thing I would recommend is we do those concurrently. In Rockaway, it really saved us a lot of time that we didn't do, for example, go through the county process and then the city process, or the city process and the county process. I think we can do these hearings concurrently, and that should save us months as we move forward through this, with the goal of, hopefully, April, having something that is brought to council that can be adopted as a comprehensive plan change and a UGB expansion. So I just want to say, I really appreciate the opportunity to work on this really interesting project, and I look forward to working with city staff, planning commission, and the council on making this happen. So I guess that's the end of my report, but I'll open up to questions or any reactions.
I appreciate the report and you outlining the steps very much. That really clarifies things for me.
Great.
And I'm also happy to hear that we might be able to make it before September of next year.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it is ambitious. I do think that if we get our ducks in a row, we can potentially make this happen. I don't want to make any promises, but that's the goal we're working towards now.
Right, okay, that's great.
Peter, did you have a question?
Any other questions or comments from the council?
I had one. Just that I've worked with Scott a lot over the years. He's someone that I have a lot of respect for, someone that does excellent work. He has a lot of experience on the North Coast, and I think he's going to be a great fit here in Gerhardt. You know, the good news with this project is that we have spent time with DLC. There aren't a lot of plausible alternatives because of your topography and because the levels of urban density. And so hopefully that will aid in the process. Though if you've practiced land use law or done land use planning in Oregon, you know that there's no such thing as a sure thing, and things always seem to take longer than you would hope.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you again, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks for your time.
Has anybody emailed you?
To check for you. No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, no one has emailed Chad to talk during the visitor section. Christy, can you see, does anybody have a hand raised?
Not that I can see. Oh, yep, there goes Tom Tees.
All right, Tom, go ahead.
Hello, Tom Tees, 292 Woodland Avenue, Gerhardt. I thought that I sent an email, but it must not have went out. A couple of questions. On the greenway for ODOT, who is responsible for keeping care of that? Is that Oregon taxpayers or is that Gerhardt taxpayers? The other question I have is crosswalks. I see it looked like I read and already did the survey. And I think there's like 7 of them, he says we might be able to put in. If we have sidewalks, we should at least have a light at each one that somebody can push. Because with traffic the way it is, I just can't imagine people crossing that highway and just not getting slaughtered during the summertime. I would hate to see that. The other thing was what you guys were just talking about, the fire department. I must say I'm more than upset. We've been working on this for years. It is in the fall, it's in the spring, it's in the fall, it's in the spring, it's next year. Price keeps going up $900,000 or so every year. It would be nice if we could set a year, even if it's 10 years out, and get this to happen. I think this is really important. I don't know if anyone else feels like this, but I'm getting really bummed out about it, really bad. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tom, and I don't have the answers to your questions.
Yeah, no, I can help with that. And Tom, sorry about your email. I didn't realize that the one you sent me was about tonight's meeting. So my apologies. I did receive it.
No problem.
So yeah, we understand the delay in time and the amount of work that this is a very complicated situation. But with the help of Peter, Scott, the counselors who have engaged of late, our intention is to go potentially to the next election cycle for May. That is ultimately council's decision, but that is what the staff is heading towards with the help of these other folks. So I agree with you, but I think we're heading in that direction, and it should be fairly active over the next few months.
I would certainly.
Tom,
hope
I'd
so.
just like to add that you're certainly not alone in being bummed about the delays. I don't think I'm going out on a limb speaking for the whole council. We're all bummed that it was delayed, and we'd like to see it proceed as soon as possible.
Right, our goal was that voters would be able to vote on this in November, and then we would be able to demonstrate authorization to DLCD as part of Scott's process. Obviously, there was a ballot title challenge, and based on the schedule, the public vote was prevented. I assume that, it's a very safe assumption that we'll be trying to put it on in May. We do have a ruling on the ballot title that I wrote. The judge affirmed all of it. I would hope, because I intend to use the identical ballot title, which has been judicially affirmed, that there wouldn't be another ballot title challenge. But sadly, I learned long ago that what I want to happen and what actually happens are sometimes different things. So it's their legal right to appeal the ballot title, even though it will be identical to the one that the judge has already affirmed.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to ordinances and resolutions, and we have ordinance 930, contractor work hours, in front of us.
I recuse myself.
And so this is ordinance 930, an ordinance regulating contractor hours in the city of Gerhart. Council approved the motion in October at a special meeting, passing the attached draft contractor work ordinance, which excludes work on Sundays. Was read once by title. We need to read it again by title only at a public meeting. Is there a motion that council would like to make?
I would like to make a motion that we read once by title only ordinance proposal number 930.
Motion made by Councilor Rita Fackrell. Is there a second? Brent, I saw your lips move, but you are muted.
So I am, sorry about that. Yes, I seconded that.
There is a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? To read?
Aye.
Aye. And can you read the title?
Sure,
please?
any opposed, if you wanted to do that.
Any opposed?
Nay.
One no. 3 yeas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Title is ordinance number 930, an ordinance regulating contractor work hours in the city of Gerhart. Thank you.
Thank you all. And next we have resolution 965, Gerhart zip code request. Ted, you want to go over this one?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I'll read the synopsis here quickly. City staff has researched the possibility of a new zip code many times, resulting in various reasons of why the city is ineligible and/or would be denied after United States Postal Service lengthy process. After Councilor Warren's recent conversation with a representative from Suzanne Bonamici's office, support from her office was given along with regional USPS contact name. Councilor Warren therefore brought a draft resolution to the October City Council meeting for discussion with the recommendation council pursue the assignment of a new zip code. On approved motion by council, city staff prepared the draft and applied some changes in verbiage as the request of Councilor Warren. Attached is the final version of resolution 965, ready for consideration at council's request. Also attached is an example from Gearhart's postmistress, Karen, explaining the kind of confusions sharing the zip code creates daily. So under options, we have that you resolve to pursue the zip code with the attached resolution, make changes, or table or do nothing.
I move that we resolve to pursue the individual zip code with USPS via the attached resolution 965.
There's a motion to move forward with resolution 965. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Discussion?
I would love to hear Rita's pros and cons.
Rita?
Well, these are not my pros and cons. I'm pro a new zip code. But when I was talking to the mail carrier in in Seaside, he indicated to me that from what he understood, that if we did have a new zip code, the Seaside carriers would not be allowed to deliver anything to anything other than a 97138 zip code. That is, they would not be able to deliver as they now do to Gearhart if we had a new zip code, and that would be the cons. And but that was his understanding. My understanding is that, yes, we do need one.
We do need a zip code, but we don't know what that would look like in terms of how people would get their mail.
Yes.
If they don't have a post office box.
Yes, if they don't. And I also understand, and maybe if Karen is here, she can elaborate, that sometimes there's a waiting list for PO boxes in Gearhart. So if you don't get mail delivery and you don't have a post office box, then you're kind of out of luck. So if we did get a new zip code in Gearhart, we're not sure who would deliver to the people who do have actual mailboxes. And that was the concern of my mail carrier, or the Seaside mail carrier.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions was, does the current Gearhart post office have the capacity to take on the added post office boxes of hundreds and hundreds of people that are getting their mail delivered by Seaside Direct?
Interesting question. We should ought to talk to the postmaster down there.
Yes, and I've understood that they had a new postmaster change, and I don't really know how that's going, but I'm just like, what I'm telling you is just what I heard from someone else. I am not a postal employee, so I don't have any legality of what I'm saying. I'm just saying what I was told.
Right. I have talked to a number of actual post office employees, including Rita's son-in-law. And there are issues that need to be hammered out. A lot of the rules that the post office is using are fairly old and antiquated before there was such a thing as Amazon or eBay, and these things just weren't contemplated at the time. Our contract station in Gearhart was set up 3 years before zip codes were even invented. And so that really wasn't thought about when Gearhart was spun off from the Seaside post office. Seaside currently doesn't have a postmaster. And I'm told that they have an interim male supervisor running the operation. So the decision will be made at the regional level. And if our request is successful, they're going to have to figure out a way that Gerhardt gets mail. And whether that means a seaside postal carrier is going to continue to deliver to home delivery in Gerhardt, that may be an option. They may reallocate budget to the Gerhardt contract post office to hire a contract mail deliverer. So like a rural route postal worker who's not a US Postal Service employee. That's another option. And there might be other options as well to solve the problem. But that's the Postal Service's prerogative to figure out the solution that best gets the mail out at the least cost. And the whole Gerhardt post office, our post office is really pretty small. I think we ought to be looking at finding a new site that can allow for more postal boxes.
My concern is the talk about the Gerhardt post office, as Councilor Warren says, is not serving, in my estimation, a very large amount of our populace. So in my particular case, my post office is Seaside. I don't get anything from the Gerhardt post office. I have no reason to ever go there because it doesn't service me at all. And so there's seems to be a consensus here, other than myself, that a change needs to happen without ever actually asking a very large amount of our populace what they think about this. Because the problems that are happening in the core, the lettered streets and the numbered streets, or lettered avenues and numbered avenues, depending on which city you're having the issue with, don't affect the largest majority of actual homeowners in Gerhardt. There's never a confusion about Sea Ridge Lane or Sandy Ridge Road or any of these, Ridge Drive, these places that are getting mail delivered. We don't have issues like what you're complaining about here in the core.
Okay, so Dan,
you're gonna crush what we have for mail service to make it better for yourself. And I think that the cart's before the horse here. We don't have answers to some of these potential problems. We shouldn't be voting on a resolution like this.
But this is the first step in getting answers to the questions.
The first step is
So
really
you're saying that
asking
you
the
would
public whether there's a demand or not. And because you have a core group of people that believe there's a demand in the core group, doesn't mean there's a demand for the majority of your citizens that you're elected to actually look out for. I'm sorry, this is one of the many things that steam me about what's going on in this community currently, is we have a great divide between the core community and what I believe is, at this point, the largest voting majority of Gerhardt residents, which are not associated with the core whatsoever. I have no association with Gerhardt other than I'm a city councilor and I have some clients here, but I don't shop in Gerhardt. I haven't done much work in Gerhardt as of recent. I'm up and down the highway multiple times a day. That's the Gerhardt that I know. And there's people here that actually refer to people like myself as those people, like we're the plague or we're the scourge of Gerhardt because we're not part of the downtown core. We're those people that live on the other side. I'm sorry, I get my gander ruffled by things like this because the representation is not here, other than myself, for what I do believe is the largest majority of voting people in the city of Dearborn. And I've said enough at this point.
So Counselor Jesse, let me ask you this. Would having a new zip code for the city of Seaside harm you in any way?
If I can't get package delivery, I'm a major thoroughfare. We get packages delivered every day. I probably am experienced, I will get, on a weight basis, probably 300 to 500 pounds of package delivery tomorrow at my doorstep. How do I get that if I'm working someplace else and I can't get into the post office during open hours? How do I run that? How do I run my business based on that?
So is that coming by US Postal Service?
I had a US postal truck on my doorstep at about 7:40 this morning, delivering the first package.
So,
It weighed 35 pounds.
so you and I and all the city councilors, we all represent the citizens of Gearhart. And I have had, I don't get much mail from the citizens to my counselor post or my counselor mail. But this week I've gotten 3 emails from the citizens of Gearhart who have emailed me at my counselor, email and advocated for a new zip code. And they have listed the reasons why. And I have not received any email from anyone else who is my Gearhart community who says, no, let's not get a new zip code. So as far as I represent the citizens of Gearhart, I have to go with what they are telling me. And
So
that's,
may I ask, are the people that have emailed you, are they living in the core? Or
Yes.
Okay.
they are Gearhart citizens.
And do you have any idea how the non-core residents would have any idea that this is even being voted on? Because because the majority of these people do not feel like they're Gearhart residents in any capacity, other than they happen to have a Gearhart name with a combined zip code with Seaside, but they're not part of Gearhart, and they don't feel part of Gearhart because they don't feel like they're represented by Gearhart in any capacity. And so that's where the rub is here, is people don't ask what this large majority of working class people that are living east of the Nicoxie, much of them along the highway corridor, nobody seems to ever question what affects them or what would they like to see in the community or what do we think? There's no outreach because they're not going to the post office to even read that this is a possibility because they don't have any reason to go to the post office in Gearhart. And I've argued this for years about how do you outreach people that aren't part of the normal, how we believe as a community, it seems that we have to post something at the post office, we post it at, City Hall. Most citizens don't go to the post office or City Hall.
We put so much on the blog that I think there is an ability for people who are east of the Nicoxie Creek. I'm one, Rita's one, you're one. The majority of the council lives east of the creek. I walk up and down my street, which is primarily full-time residents, working people. I'm out there talking to them all the time about these issues. I understand you're working, you're not retired yet. So maybe you're not doing that in your neighborhood, but that's where I get a lot of feedback.
So in my neighborhood, we have one person that doesn't have a mailbox on our street. Happens to be my mother and father-in-law. They've been Gearhart residents for decades and they've had the same P.O. box at 3 different houses. So they just kept their P.O. box from the early 70s. And to them, they don't want to change. It's too much effort to change to get a mailbox. They could have had one on Summit, they didn't. And they could have had one here and there in their 80s, but you know, it works fine for them. It's an alley to get them out of the house to go to the post office place. They're the only ones on the street, however, that don't get mail delivered. However, they do get package delivery to your heart. I am confident.
So Dan,
The majority of people that are outside of this core have no clue that this is being voted on tonight. And I don't have a way to change that. I don't profess to have a way to change that. I'm just telling you the way I believe it to be. So
Dan, if people can get mail delivered to their home as they currently are, why does having a 97139 zip code instead of a 97138 matter to them?
Wouldn't hurt my feelings whatsoever. What hurts my feelings is the idea that we're going to pursue something that we don't know the outcome to. That's what I think is wrong. To me, we need to figure out how is this going to work, negotiate how it's going to work before we actually agree to doing something that we may not have control of the outcome of. You said that the decision would be made at a regional level, and if they choose to do it at that point, do we get to say, oh no, wait a minute, we don't want to do it now because we don't like what's going to happen to this group of people that have been relying on seaside delivery for decades? If we don't know the answer to that, we should not be voting on this tonight.
I was unaware that, Rita, the information your son-in-law gave you that they were going to stop delivering mail. That's 1975, that's what, 30 or 40, almost 50 years worth of mail that I've been getting. And I am not giving up my mail delivery across the street. Not unless you can assure me that I'm going to still continue to get mail delivery. I was unaware of that, and I would never have supported this in the first place, even though I write 139 on all my return addresses and have for years.
That's funny.
But no, I want my mail delivered on my street.
So it sounds to me like we need to do a bit more due diligence and see if we can make some contact with the USPS, not at Seaside, but maybe up the chain a little bit. Maybe we can make a call and talk to somebody and find out what some possible solutions might be before we move forward.
I would agree to that.
I truthfully would, I would vote in favor of this if I knew that the mail service was going to continue uninterrupted to the people that are used to getting mail delivered. That's my beef, is if we don't know the answer to that, I can't support it. But I would support it. I have no issue with the change in the zip code. I actually think there's probably merit in it, as long as the people that are used to getting mail delivery are dealt with appropriately.
Yeah, agreed. But my point is, it doesn't matter if their mail carrier comes immediately from Seaside Post Office or Gerhardt. And it can be done either way. We just don't know which way. So yeah, we can do some more investigation and talk to the regional post office people and figure out how it's going to happen. So I'm fine with that.
It's true, because the rules that my son-in-law was going by was the rules that have been set in stone 40 years ago. So maybe there's a chance for a change. So I would really look forward to pursuing this more and see who could be delivering our mail. So yeah, I'd agree to that.
So does someone want to withdraw the motion that's on the table or amend the motion to say we are going to do some more due diligence?
I have a recommendation for that when you have a moment.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor and Council. So the resolution 965 goes through a lot of the reasons that this is an interesting topic and why 97139 may help us. The last, now therefore, is worded to say the city of Deer Heart requests the United States Postal Service to assign a zip code 97139 or another unique zip code to the city. City staff and did some looking at the process and of what this would take, and we've attached that to the resolution as well. I just want to point out a few things about that may help, and then I'd like to make a suggestion of how to change the resolution to work with this. So the zip code boundary review, the city would submit some rationale and justification in writing to the USPS, to identify the reasonable accommodation for a unique zip code. The second step in that process is that during the approval process, it would include an evaluation of all costs, benefits, and issues with potential solutions. And this would also quantify specific operations, impacts, and feasibility, meet with proponents to discuss the alternatives and the issues. I'm hoping that would include opponents as well. Then it would give a period of 60 days for a final decision as well. So my recommendation would to look at the resolution, change just very simply the now therefore line where it says the city of Deer Heart requests USPS. Instead of to assign, we would maybe enter in the word review zip code 97139 or another unique zip code to our city. I think that may give an operation where we would actually pursue this information, work with the USPS, and then it does not say that we would actually then assign ourselves that new zip code. It says we'll continue to review it. We can have further action.
Go ahead.
So I've actually been through one of these, and it was a while ago, and it was the city of Damascus. So, I'm probably going to walk out. But my memory is that it's a very robust process, and my memory also is that the USPS had to make determinations that service and their ability to provide service would be improved by it. That is my recollection of how the process worked. And so if the result is that people who have been getting packages, regularly scheduled packages delivered by a post office in Seaside are now going to get packages every 3 days or something like that, my recollection is they can't proceed with it because it would lead to greater inefficiencies in the system. Again, my memory is from probably a decade ago or plus, and I've had a lot of other memories since then, but I do not remember an ultra efficient process. I remember a process-driven process with a lot of findings in it. I can reach out to the USPS in Portland, or I could reach out to Representative Bonamici's staff or Widener Merkley's staff to gain a greater understanding of it. My understanding also is that the location of our post office, there's some question as to that and some issues around that. These are all things that will make the US Postal Service pause this process until those sort of determinations can be made, because again, I'm relying on memory, which is always dangerous, but what they want as part of the process is as much certainty as possible. So a lot of the concerns that are being raised, which I believe are absolutely legitimate concerns, if people can't get packages or can't get mail delivered to their house, they're getting it now, and there's a shortage of PO boxes, which we know there is, then that would be a major problem. I believe that is the sort of major problem that would cause the USPS to say, no, we're not going to move forward with that. But I can verify, I should be able to verify all of that, probably not this week, but probably next week, should be able to get answers. And it sounds like we really need those answers so that folks can make some informed choices, particularly if we've got 40-year-old regulations.
So my recommendation would be that we withdraw the motion and table this for 1 month and have it on as old business. With further reporting from Peter and possibly Brent. And all of us, because
Sounds
we
good.
can all talk to our neighbors.
Yes, indeed.
I didn't write down.
I did it.
That sounds like a good proposal to me.
So that sounds like a friendly withdrawal by the party that made the motion and by the party that made the second.
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, we're gonna move on then. Next is the Public Works Reserve Funds request. Yes, please explain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Our synopsis on this is the Public Works Director, our Public Works Director, Mark McFadden, is requesting water reserve funds up to $55,000 to do work needed to update our city's water management and conservation plan by March of 2022. Additionally, we seek to prepare our first water system seismic risk and mitigation plan. Staff received 2 proposals for this project, and Civil West submitted a proposal for $51,210, including grant assistance. Kennedy Jenks' proposal stated $74,951, including grant assistance. The city staff, in regards to grant assistance, is applying for 2 business organ infrastructure grants, seeking to help fund these project costs. If the city is awarded the 2 grants, the project cost would be reduced by $40,000. There is requirements to the state that we have an updated plan. It is time for us to do that. And we would like to take advantage of doing that and adding an additional plan for the seismic risk and mitigation. So we, staff recommends funding these projects for up to $55,000 by awarding the project to Civil West Engineering Services. And we have a recommended motion. As a financial analysis, the city currently has $1,350,000 in our reserve account and that reserve is to be used for items just such as this. Any questions?
I'd like to make a motion that we allow up to $55,000 to be allocated from the water reserve fund to be paid to the, what's their names here?
Civil West.
Civil West Engineering to complete our water system seismic risk and mitigation plan and water management and conservation plan project.
There a second?
I'll second that.
I'm not gonna repeat it. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Cat.
Rita, what did you
Rita's cat's
vote?
opposed.
I voted yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Moving
you.
right along.
Thank you very much.
Public Works Hazard Mitigation Funds request.
Thank you again,
One, yeah.
Madam Mayor. So the Public Works Director, again, Mark McFadden, is requesting a hazard mitigation funds. This is a different fund, up to $17,925 to purchase 2 fuel tanks. And in his explanatory statement below, he said, Dear Heart City Council, I'm requesting these funds from the City Hazard Mitigation Fund to purchase 2 fuel tanks. One tank will be 650 gallons and located next to our diesel tank at the water treatment facility. Mark, picked this location because of the rock columns installed underground that protect the tanks and the building from earthquakes. After our last major storm, the city crew was unable to get gas needed for vehicles and equipment, and luckily, the city of Seaside bailed us out by letting us use their fuel. The other tank is a 200-gallon tank that will be located at the city shops here near City Hall. This tank will be used to fuel small equipment like saws, mowers, etc. We have received one quote from Eagle Tanks located in Almsville, Oregon. We did not receive any additional quotes that met the specs that we were looking for. And that is signed, thank you, Mark McFadden. I would also like to bring up the fact that this particular issue is also mentioned in our hazard mitigation plan. This is something we've wanted to accomplish for some time. And this would provide us fuel for all sorts of different issues that could arise, whether it be a power outage, another storm, some kind of emergency situation. So you have some options to approve the request, make adjustments, or deny the request. But staff does request funding this purchase of these 2 tanks. Can I answer any questions?
Yes, what are they going to be contained by?
These are going to be contained, these are double-walled flame shield tanks.
Right.
That the tanks themselves have their own containment system and alarm system to detect any leaks that may happen. But the tanks were chosen because they are robust and designed to hold onto its contents.
And what about the base? What is it going to be fastened to?
The base at the water treatment facility, this will be fastened to the ground through some sort of foundation that will be attached.
Like a cement foundation.
Something like that, I believe, yes.
So do we need
Part of this fund, that would be part of this.
No, that wouldn't be, but that could be taken care of by other avenues in regards to our budget.
And the other one behind the shop?
The other shop will also, this will be more of a raised tank so that we can make it a gravity feed tank without a pump. And we're looking at a raised tank structure that will also be tied down per building code requirements. That's something I didn't mention earlier, is that this will have to go through a building code review and permit with the building official. So we'll make sure that the engineering is done as per Oregon State Building Code.
So it won't look like that.
It could look like that, depending on how robust that is, but that is an option. But what we do will be sure that it is built correctly, especially in regards to building code.
But what about a 9.0 earthquake? Is it going to be fastened to anything? I mean, if it rocks back and forth, because it is going to be severe rocking, even though the stand is anchored, if the tank isn't welded in place or bolted in place, it can rock right off that stand.
Yeah, and
I mean, if it's half full, that'll give it a good sway. I'm just saying, you know, you got 200 gallons right behind the shop, and all of a sudden you got a fire and everything.
I do know, and thank you, that's a good question. And all of those things we should be concerned about, including leaks, including any kind of earthquake, including theft prevention, and all of those things. Mark McFadden, our Director of Public Works, has always, in his projects, been very thorough and would make sure that these things are built to stand up. Your options, I suppose, would be for us to table this issue and to have Mark come in, investigate some of these things and be able to come answer for you, or approve the funds. And if you'd like to be involved in the project as well, to have that discussion with Mark, we could set that up. Either way is fine.
My guess tells me the tank that's on the stand would not survive the water inundation if we had a tsunami here. But would the tank at the water treatment plant survive that, and would it still be usable?
Thank you for the question. It depends on the inundation, of course. The level at that location is just under 50 feet, barely. It is where our critical infrastructure is built currently, and it has been built to withstand That area included that we would put this tank to withstand as best as possible in 9.0. That doesn't apply to this location here. We do not have that kind of infrastructure. It's exactly the reason, one of the reasons that the fire station is an expensive endeavor as well, because for Oregon law and building code, we would need to build it to those critical infrastructure standards to withstand a major event to the best of its ability. So I don't have the answers for you on the stand itself or how that would be. I know Mark's work is quality, but I think that we would be happy to provide the answers if you'd like to delay.
To me, the more critical one would be the large one. Not, we need to be safe here, but to me, the idea, that fuel gonna be out at sea or up against the hillside, which is still gonna be molten there and usable once the water recedes.
Right, and not burning in the water treatment.
Still be bolted.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Move to allow 17,925 allocation in hazard mitigation funds to purchase 2 fuel tanks.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, moving along. We have new business playground equipment. Chad, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the last city council meeting, city staff shared new wooden playground equipment designed by a company named Compan with the council. Current designs are attached and some new designs have been put on your desk as well. We are ready to proceed with the project it's not haywire, excuse me, I made a mistake there, it's high wire. Should the council choose to do so. But there is a step we need to take. The next step would involve the planning commission and the public. Because nothing is allowed in a park, it is all conditional use other than the use of the park. We will need to go to the planning commission. A public hearing for the public to provide feedback would also occur at that meeting, and then the planning commission then approves with condition or declines that application. Planning and the public must support the placement of this playground in Centennial Park in order to move forward. So city staff requests the council provide direction. If Centennial Park is the desired location at this point, staff is requesting council approve through a consensus that we move forward with the conditional use process. So the city of Gearhart would be the applicant, and then we would make a presentation to the city of Gearhart Planning Commission. We have a financial analysis here attached. There has been some changes to the plan slightly. Now, nothing is set in stone at this point, but we wanted to give you the best estimates of the direction we are heading. There is a new plan here, and after conversations with Berkeley Sturgill's mother, who spoke with Berkeley, and Berkeley was the young lady who raised a lot of funds for this project. Berkeley noticed that our plans that we presented to the city council last month, that we did not have a slide. She thought that might be a good addition to it. So Ms. Christie went ahead and did some digging and found a good option for that, which would add about $16,000 to the project total. So with our available funds, this project would cost about $60,000, not including the structure to contain the wood chips that will be surrounding and underneath this system. But we believe that somewhere, for a small stem wall kind of curb or some sort of maybe natural barrier, we're anticipating about $10,000 to accomplish that. I'm hoping that's high, but that would be the only additional cost. As far as available funds for this project, the city is in good shape with our funds. because of the funds that were raised, because of what the city had already budgeted, and the additional American Rescue Act monies that the city is receiving, saving, and putting and had earmarked for such a project. Is there any questions?
Is the slide out of wood?
Okay.
Slide.
That would
Well,
be,
everything else is wood and I'm just going, no way.
that would be a terrible mistake.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
can see it being made by accident.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, I believe the slide is made out of stainless steel. On this one, it definitely looks that way in the pictures.
Okay. As long as we're not,
Do you want to pass it around? We didn't get those copies.
no.
Okay, so I thought they were attached to the ground equipment process as far as the pictures go, but the picture for the slide itself and that system is right here.
Thank you.
Well, I would just say that this was the number one request from the public input for the parks plan, which I know is still in process, but we have a lot of feedback that children's play equipment was the number one need and request. Yeah. The band light. There's the slide, you guys.
I can zoom in, but yeah.
I'm fully in support.
It's a little structure with the slide.
Okay.
I think the aesthetic is nice. I think the price seems, based on what we're seeing elsewhere, appropriate. I'm not sure it's really appropriate, but it seems appropriate based on prices. So I'm in full support.
And we did say going in, I had hoped that we could get donations for about 50%, and we've done that. So the city's putting in the other 50%. Thank you to everybody who gave money to this effort. But I would love to move forward. You all? Carrie?
Move.
They said consensus, so.
Yeah, consensus just to go ahead and allow for us to go forward with the conditional use process.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think Centennial Park is the best location for the equipment. My only little caveat would be, we have heard some suggestion to have a shared septic system for the downtown businesses that currently have inadequate systems. So I just want to make sure that we don't locate it somewhere that would preclude that from happening down the road in the future, if that's the direction that the city decides to go.
I'll note that, Councilor. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I think, Rita, you're okay?
I'm fine with it. I think it's a good idea. My only question is, if we're moving forward with this in Centennial Park, what's the estimated time that this would be completed?
Lead time, it says, is 14 weeks for the system to be built.
So spring at least.
So it would be available next summer?
That's the intention, is for next summer. If we get
All right.
started on the conditional use permit process, once we receive, or once we go ahead and put the application and staff report together, the planning commission has 45 days to hear it. That hearing will occur. We'll wait out any appeal portion of this. And then we will actually also, as well, during that time, officially come to the city council to request the funds be spent in this manner. So the possibility of it getting done by spring is tight, but by summer, we're hoping so. Compan is available, or no, excuse me, Highwire is available to do the installation with that kind of timeline as well. They're giving us the indication that they are. So all things smooth, yes.
It would be nice if they would hold the price if we gave them a provisional, yes, we want to do it.
I saw that in the date as well, so I will look into that. Thank you.
Okay, one more item of business, and that is Duncan's Crossing proclamation. And there is a draft, a new draft in front of you. Chad, go ahead.
Correct. Thank you, Madam Mayor and councilors. So please find a naming proclamation attached for the purposes of the council to officially name the Ridge Path Crossing project after its champion, John Duncan. The proclamation details the reasoning behind this request. We have made a few minor changes with the help of Madam Mayor to the proclamation. We put that on the desk, and I believe it's online and has been sent out as well. City staff recommends the council proclaim Duncan's Crossing the name of the Ridge Path walkway constructed over the wetlands between 8th and 10th Streets. It's been a long time coming to see this great man's service vision come to full fruition. The final step will be placement of signs directing the trail goers exiting 10th Street to where the trail continues. We've already requested a quote for trail sign design with a local vendor, and we'll be discussing that in the future. This project, when I first became city administrator in 2011, was also brought up by then Mayor Kent Smith. And he had been trying to get this project done for the years prior to my arrival. It's been a long time coming in a difficult situation, but I think the proclamation explains some of that. And so staff would wait for your recommendation on the proclamation.
So I have something to say. I hope that's okay. Chad knows how I feel about proclamations. He has heard me complain and whine about them, that they're superfluous and redundant. This is the first proclamation I'm wholeheartedly for. So I'm just letting you know, Chad, I've changed my mind. This is a good one. That's it.
Noted this date. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve the proclamation?
Oh, I'll do that. I make a motion that we approve this proclamation declaring the Ridge Path Duncan's Crossing a proclamation.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we're going to move on to council concerns. Dan, Jesse.
I have none.
Carrie.
I have none.
Rita.
I have no concerns, but I just want to thank Christy and Justine for all the work that they do at City Hall. And that's it.
And Brent.
Well, how could I disagree with what Rita said? Yeah, they hold the city together. We appreciate you. Glad you're here. Chad's made some really good hires. So I don't have a concern at this time, so let's adjourn.
I'll take that as a motion. Is there a second? That was you?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Somebody opposes adjourning.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Council. Appreciate it.
I'm kind of on automaton right now.
No
It was a good rant. There was a